All right, we want to continue with the discussion with our guest here, also looking at the death of Msando and a raft of other issues as well here on People and Politics. I want just to draw attention also on the front page of the Daily Nation. This is what is headlining the front page of the Daily Nation today. FBI may join hands for Paul Man's killers. It says Tobacco orders speedy investigations even as the US and UK put at Kenya's disposal some of the world's best homicide detectives. And this story continues on page 4, 5 and 6 of today's Daily Nation. Right. Also, survey shows meat that could be laden with poison. Right, that is just a side-by story there. But I want to introduce my panelists this morning. We have Miguna Miguna with us, who is a Nairobi gubernatorial candidate. Also, we do have with us Joshua Kiptoo, a tutorial fellow at the University of Nairobi, advocate of the High Court. Also, we do have with us Senator Kimani Wamatangi, who is the senator from Kiambu. Also joining us this morning is Kimani Ichung'wah, who is a member of parliament from Kikuyu. Let's begin with you, Miguna Miguna. First of all, hearing the death of Msando, he was here on Friday talking about the electronic voting system and its integrity, and how also come the August of 8th, there will be no rigging at all. I mean, it was watertight, he says. But you're looking at the front page of the Daily Nation, you have misgivings about this headline as well. Why?
Well, first of all, Debarl, I would like to express my deep and sincere condolences to the family of Mr. Msando, and also to express my shock at the obvious brutal murder of someone whom from just watching his interview was an exceptional professional. Having said that, I told you that I don't like the headline because the Nation is speculating. It says FBI may join hand for Paul Man's killers. This is not a kind of headline I expect from a top-tier newspaper like The Nation, because a headline must be based, or a story must be based on facts and evidence. And The Nation could easily have simply called the competent authorities, the Kenyan competent authorities, to verify whether or not they had accepted the offer by the Americans and the British, which I had in yesterday's news, to provide assistance with the investigation. From just the way the media has reported this, there are a lot of errors that I see in the report. Number one, the media has insisted that Msando left Anniversary Towers at a specific period of time, and have stated that the vehicle was missing, therefore implying that he left. They have also said that he was seen driving on either Thika Road or Mombasa Road. I'm not sure if they have watched the CCTV cameras and saw him driving. It's one thing to say you saw a vehicle on a road, and it's another to say someone was driving it. Then they have also stated that he texted his wife and he texted a colleague at the IEBC. The question is, how do we know who was in control of his devices? He may not have been the one texting. The killers could have been the one texting, purporting to be him, and pretending that he was still alive when he could have been dead. Then, of course, it is worrying to see that Moses Kuria posted something quite outrageous. And this man really has exceeded all license that anybody could have given him. First, he called Msando an idiot. He stated as fact, even though it was not fact, and he couldn't verify that it was fact, that he was enjoying himself, purporting that Msando was with a woman at the time, unless he was present with Msando at the time and witnessed, physically witnessed, Msando enjoying with a woman. He could not and cannot post as fact that he was with a woman. How did he know that? When did he know that? Under what circumstances? How did he find himself near Msando's car? And as we now learn, he was saying all these things when Msando was already dead. So a real competent forensic investigator would be able to unravel this thing in 1 week. And I hope that the government would actually invite the FBI and the Scotland Yard to assist them with the investigation, because I can't trust the Kenyan police in this one.
You can't trust
I can't trust them.
All right, let's hear from Honorable Kimani Wamatangi. Your reaction?
Well, thank you, Debarl. First, to say good morning to our viewers, and second, to convey my very sincere condolences to the family of the late Msando. And like we did a few months ago, to acknowledge that there is no reason or excuse as to why a man of Msando's caliber, character, and also national service record should lose his life badly, wantonly, and undeservedly, and especially at a time like this.
All right, I'm sorry to butt in. I think your mic has a problem. We'll sort it out just momentarily as Joshua Kiptoo also continues with the sentiment and reactions on this. We'll attend to you, Mheshimiwa. Right, Joshua.
Thank you so much, Debarl, and good morning. As it is the norm, I think it's always expected of us, or it can only be kind of us to remember that, one, there's a grieving family, and that one is the first stop where we condole with the family, because it's such a hurtful thing when such a thing happens. Secondly, as Miguna Miguna has just clearly spoken about, if only we could have the ability to be able to investigate, just do credible investigation. Our institutional failure has made it to be a trial exercise where we are not certain whether we can be able to unravel such a case. We've had previous cases. This is not the first one. A year or so ago, we had Jacob Juma. That still stands as it is. We don't have a track record or we don't have the track record and say that as per precedents we can be able to unravel. So that a bit is a minus on our part, that even as such and happens, and with all the statements, there's always this beautiful statement that our police officers always give. They say that no stones will be left unturned. There was a joke going around that if you were to count the number of stones that have remained unturned, then we shouldn't say such a case. So it's such a sad situation, and it comes at a very wrong time, because out of such a case, out of such a murder, the innuendos and the perception that will grow out of such, the conspiracy theories that will grow out of such, doesn't help. Again, by virtue that he was the one of the key personnel in the ICT department in IEBC, again fuel such conspiracy theories. So I would think that, one, we first acknowledge and condole with the loved ones, because losing such a person in such a circumstance, of course, brings such bitterness and pain. But importantly, the timing. I would sit in the corner that would love to see how fast can we be able to get the real story? How fast can we be able to get credible investigations? This idea of, it's such an indictment on our bit. If we are this country that 50 years down the line, we rely on a different power to come investigate. That's such a serious indictment on our institutional capacity and credibility. If, for example, you have a case whereby we are asking for Scotland Yard and FBI, if it was 1960, 1970, it would make sense. Now we are here. Don't you think it's only fair enough? It's only fair if, for example, our institutions step up. And they only need such to be able to build confidence in them. If, for example, the DCI pulls off this and really does a very quick, credible investigation that can shed light and possibly leads to the conviction of the killers, you are very sure it is such small steps that make our institutions grow, and the public will be confident. So it's a sad case. It's only that it comes at a wrong time. We are 1 week away from elections. It is the time where perceptions reign supreme. I would not fall in the category that would draw and justify any of the conspiracy theory. I would lie to you if I tell you I know the facts, I know this was killed because of this. So I would prefer we just give the family time to grieve, but importantly, we train our eyes on our institutions that are supposed, they should even offer the security.
All right, thank you. Let's hear from Kimani Wamatangi. I think your mic is sorted right now.
Thank you, Debarl. And if we were in a political meeting, I would have first asked for a probe on you.
Why me?
Whether you are trying to
Sabotage.
You know,
The audio.
It's normal. It's normal behavior or character in political meetings that when you take to the stage, if your opponents are fearing you, they switch off your mic.
And everybody will grow suspicious right now as we're heading towards the elections.
And because, you know, we have political differences with you.
Really? I'm a very apolitical.
I would suspect that you may want to sabotage me. However, what I would want to say is that, as most of my colleagues have said, we condole with the family. I do condole with the family. I can hear and understand their grief. This was a relatively young man. Yesterday, actually on the day when his body was discovered first, I heard from many of the residents of Kiambu. They called me from the area where his body was discovered and said there's a body of a man who's been discovered here. And it's, as the press has reported, it's a notorious spot where bodies are usually dumped. I didn't take much interest that particular time to go there or to know that it was him. But then also, I heard yesterday my children discussing about his death, saying that they know some of his children. They go to play together. And so, you know, you can imagine how the family is like at this time, grieving. And so I sincerely condole with them. Secondly, let me say that we must admit that it's a death, that it's a murder that has come at the wrong time for the country. Because this is a senior IEBC official. And we are just a week away from an election that is not only highly contested, but also one that where the stakes are very high. And this gentleman held such an important portfolio. So I would also want to keep away from speculation, but just to mention three things. First, you know, in such circumstances, one would argue probably it could be either one, normal crime, you know, murder, or probably, you know, murder out of occupational hazard. Three, there are times, Debarl, when if somebody has a motive to want to either kill you, assassinate you, they would use an opportunity. For example, when they find that we are going to an election and there will be speculation about this, they can take advantage for many other reasons and also kill you because they know it will open up a storm. However, it's no time for that. I just want to say that my condolences. This country will still go to an election. We'll still hold our elections, and God willing, we are going to have results of a clear winner, and this country will remain stable and will remain firmly, you know, a secure country.
Thank you.
So I believe that that's how it will be like. But my condolences sincerely to the family.
Right. Let's hear from Honorable Ichung'wah. Good morning.
Thank you, Debarl, and let me join my colleagues first in expressing my very heartfelt condolences to the wife and the immediate family of the late Chris Msando. As Kiptoo has said, let us also be cognizant of that fact, that indeed there is a grieving family, a family that is in pain, and as Wamatangi says, including children, young children who are now orphaned without a father, children who do not deserve that, a wife who does not deserve to lose a husband in such a heinous matter. Let me say, regrettably, as has been reported, the two bodies were found in Kikuyu, in my constituency, and I must take this very early opportunity to ask KFS, who own the land, or rather the forest.
The Muguga forest.
Yeah, where this land is a forest actually between Kari and Kefri, headquarters in Muguga. And is all government land, is government forest. The particular forest where these bodies were found is, I think, managed by KFS, because there's a part of the forest that's managed by Kefri. I was saying, let me take this opportunity to ask the director of both Kefri and KFS to at least ensure that they fence off this forest like they have done with Karura. You do recall some years back, Karura also served as a safe haven for dumping bodies and all manner of crime. This forest now in Muguga has turned to be such a forest, and I think it's only fair that they fence it so that it doesn't give a bad name to the people of Kikuyu, who are otherwise very good people. Let me also...
also reports from the Standard indicate that, yes, you know, around that particular forest, the Muguga forest, it seems that, yeah, there's a lot of killings that is happening there because of stench, and maybe because of this wafting stench is what maybe led the public to the forest.
In actual fact, I'm told from accounts I've heard from the people on the ground that it's a lady who just got into the forest to relieve herself, who found one of the bodies. And actually, the second body was found after the first body had been taken away, because it was somewhere deeper into the thickets. And it's not the first time that bodies are being dumped here. It's not the first time that people also are dumping a lot of rubbish. And naturally, people at times smell the stench and assume it's the garbage that people also go to dump in this forest. And that's why I'm asking KFS to ensure that they at least fence off this forest. Even if with not electric barbed wire like Karura, even simple chain link to stop intruders from getting into the forest, because it's then that criminals also take advantage. Again, it's a very convenient place to do these kind of things, because it's maybe about a kilometer off the main Nairobi-Nakuru highway, and the road going to Kari is also tarmacked and smooth, so you can get off the highway and quickly do whatever you want to do and get back to the highway and take off. That being that, Debarl, let me also ask those of us who are political leaders, especially at this time, when emotions are very high, when the country is still very tense, to desist from making any sort of political insinuations in this matter. I did hear Director of CID, Muhoro, last night, welcoming, and that's why I don't take offense, unlike what Miguna is taking offense with your headlines. Muhoro did indicate that if need be, they would call in help. As to the question whether we have competent officers to investigate some of these things, again, I have a lot of confidence, and I'll say this based on what happened, I think, last year during after the murder of lawyer Willie Kimani, who unfortunately was murdered by the police themselves, certain officers within the police force. But within a very short time, the CID, very competent officers who were put on that case, were able to unravel what happened. You can remember that time the car had been dumped somewhere in Limuru.
Thank you.
The bodies were on the other side of the country, now the river. But the police were able to unravel that. So I want to express my confidence that Muhoro can put together a team that can unravel this issue. Lastly, Debarl, let me join Miguna in saying, let us also not pick too much into what Moses Kuria posted. To say the least, what Moses Kuria did was, for lack of better words, stupid and reckless. I think as politicians, even as we seek cheap publicity, there are things that we should be more sensitive to, especially issues to do with human life.
Right. Let me rope in before we take a short break, Ken Okoth. Of course, Ken Okoth, we've been discussing about the National Coroner's Bill that we know, I think the last month, it was now assented by the president, is now an act, and we can see, in light of what is happening, if actually this will come to, the fore right now, we see the act happening and people using the act right now. Let's just speak about, maybe I can get your reaction first, then we shall go deeper on the other side of a break, also looking at the National Coroner's Act right now and how this will pan out in light of the murder of Mr. Msando.
Thank you, Debarl. I also send my condolences. I'm shocked and I'm saddened at the turnout, the way the events have turned out. Yesterday, I was in a discussion with some politicians, Honorable Sakaja and Honorable Elachi on another station, and we were discussing this gentleman, his disappearance before the news came around midday, and we were hearing insinuations that, oh no, he's out there, disappeared for Mpango or Kando or something like that. And it's like, the guy has got an important job. He has a dry run of an electoral system to lead today. And people are joking and insinuating, no, he's just out there having an affair. Sadly, we said, let's pray that he's alive and well and he comes back to his family. But that was not to be around lunchtime when he got the news. It's very sad, it's very shocking. It is a loss. It calls into question, really, critical player in that team in IEBC. We want credible elections that might be free and fair so that Kenyans have a sense of justice about their voice being expressed as per the Constitution. When you start having issues like this amongst many others that have been contested, it's really scary. So I do link that. But I think we come back to it, what do we as lawmakers do? Apart from representation, apart from oversight of government, we actually make laws. And I think in this 11th Parliament, I'm very proud that myself, Honorable Duale, other members of the Human Rights Caucus worked very hard on the National Coroner Service Bill. A lot of people ask, who is a coroner? A coroner is the office that does death investigations, separate from the police. And for a long time in Kenya, it has been the police will investigate, the police will investigate. If you look at the headlines and the offers for assistance from foreign countries, we want to establish our own capacity on issues of death investigation. And this law, we passed it on the 21st in April, I think, and then the president signed it in June on the 21st, and historically it became its commencement date. It's actually a real law of the country that is active, 7/7, Saba. We're coming to Nane, but that was the commencement date. So right now, I would say today, for, once someone's dead, it's hard to bring him back. But my call is upon the Inspector General Police, the PSs in charge of justice and security, everyone that's involved, to set up the council for the National Coroner Service as per the Act very quickly, to find ways to arrange some resources so we can start getting an independent set of death investigations and death issues such as the passing away of General Kaiseri, the passing away of Msando, and other mysterious deaths would be investigated under this law, separate from the police, and then recommendations given to the Director of Prosecutions.
And of course, Msando was here last Friday saying, of course, what we have the proper system, especially with the electronic system, is the issue of trust, that Kenyans don't trust each other, right? So even now with the National Coroners Act that is into force right now, will we have that element of trust with this new body, right? We'll find out that also on the other side of a break. And also, just away from the cameras, you're saying you don't see any difference, any discernible difference that this National Coroners Service Act will bring to the fore.
Yes, Debarl, let me say this. First of all, the problem with Kenya is lack of integrity of both the institutions and those given responsibility to preside over them. So for instance, if we had a competent police force that Kenyans believed in, and a police service and police officers that Kenyans trusted in terms of their ethics, training, competence, and abilities, we would not be talking about inviting the FBI, the Scotland Yard, and whatever. In fact, if you look at page 4 of the Nation, the Daily Nation, you will see the vehicle that I understand is Mr. Msando's vehicle. But look at the two men standing next to the vehicle who are supposed to be police officers. They are barehanded. No gloves. So the first thing you pick out as someone who analyzes scenes of crime is, why would two police officers, purported investigators, presumably forensic investigators, be standing next to the vehicle, a crime scene, without gloves? Where are the kits, the dusting? There is no confidence I have in that crime scene. There is a yellow tape, but the men standing there like normal pedestrians. There is no confidence that it's a police service. Wearing gloves, if you see the Americans or the British or any other competent police force near crime scene, they're actually dressed from head to foot, covered in gloves, usually yellow, meaning that even the hair, you see, these guys are contaminated the scene. He's even talking on the phone. He's looking with his bare, naked eyes, talking on the phone, with no gloves, nothing covering his hair. So hair samples in this scene are important. Remember the OJ trial? Whoever whose hair strands are found at the scene would have to be investigated. What were they doing near the vehicle? When were they there? Did they see Msando? Is Msando's hair strands there? Was this woman in this vehicle the alleged person that Msando was with? These are very relevant questions. So, a coroner's bail or act and a coroner's office will not change this behavior. Secondly, and more importantly, the investigators that will be attached to the coroner's institution would presumably be the same contaminated police officers that are contaminating the scenes. Where would you get them from if we are not able to even train these officers well, give them the necessary equipment? Because again, you could be trained and without equipment you can't do anything. Now, another important thing, and my friend Kimani, the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah raised it when we were on the break. Who threatened Mr. Msando? When did they threaten Mr. Msando?
Yes.
And why? Who stands to gain from this death is very important, because it would then show the motive. More importantly also, I watched Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, the senator for Kisumu, yesterday on NTV at night.
Yes.
And Professor Anyang' Nyong'o said things that horrified me. Horrified me at the recklessness of our leaders, him included. Horrified me thoroughly. And I wondered, did Professor Anyang' Nyong'o stop thinking? Because he said, I watched him very closely, he said, he was either a few weeks or a few days ago with Mr. Msando. He picked him up at the anniversary towers, went to dinner with him at the Norfolk Hotel, dropped him back at anniversary towers at midnight. Mr. Msando said that he was going upstairs to continue working. Now, we are in an election period where NASA and Jubilee are fighting. They are fighting over the IEBC. They are fighting over everything about the IEBC. This is the man in charge of the infrastructure, ICT infrastructure, that will not only tally and relay the results, but actually announce them. And here is a leader of ODM and NASA taking the person in charge of this to dinner. Is this not recklessness of the worst kind? Why do you expose this man? You have security, you have everything, but this man is just alone. You're dropping him back to his office. And then you expect him to be alive? I'm not trying to suggest that people killed him politically, but I'm just saying that scenario that was described by Professor Anyang' Nyong'o is a no-go zone in any country where good governance...
No, I think I have to bat it there, because it's,
no,
it's not the honors of Professor Anyang' Nyong'o.
No, let me finish, please. Let me finish. He had his time, and I did not interfere, and you did not bat. He was able to speak eloquently on what happened, and I'm entitled to comment on his statement. I am saying, as a thinking human being, because I'm a thinker first.
But I think you're taking it out of context.
No, listen to me, please. You are not there, and maybe you did not watch it.
I watched
it.
Did. I watched the
but your interpretation...
and he was
my
there
friend,
in the morning.
You are a media person, Debarl.
Okay.
Debarl, you are not a commentator. You ask questions. Let me comment on this one. It is wrong. What if, because there was a case in court where NASA went to court challenging Jubilee that the printing of the ballot papers, the presidential ballot papers, could not be trusted because somebody from Al-Ghurair went to see President Uhuru Kenyatta at State House. The matter actually went to court. So if that was an issue, why is it not an issue that Professor Anyang' Nyong'o was seen with a man in charge of the ICT at the IEBC? What I'm saying is this, my friend. Let us be people who think. Let us be people who are sensitive. Let us be people who see the optics, and that when we as leaders do something, there could be consequences.
All right, thank you. Let's hear from Kimani Wamatangi. First of all, because I think this is being blown out of proportion, because what he said, it was not the same day that he was with the Mr. Msando. So we cannot pick any other day that I saw you having lunch or dinner with anyone. Then you put on that particular... No, it's not about mediocre. Let's hear from Wamatangi. No. It's not about mediocrity. Let's just put everything into perspective.
It's the same thing that is afflicting the police force.
I gave you time. Let's hear from Kimani Wamatangi, please.
Thank you, Debarl. I think first, as we continue with the discussion, it is important that we remain true to what we said at the opening, that we need to be cognizant of the fact that there's a family that's grieving, and as we are saying all these things, let's not overextend it to even afflict more pain to the family by speculating about things that we don't know. And you know, it's one thing to comment on the death of somebody. It's another thing to be the victim, and to know. And I want to emphasize that this man was a father, he was a brother to people, he was a husband, he was a family member, he was an uncle. So there are so many people who are afflicted. So we cannot really direct the debate. And I want to say to my very good friend, Mr. Miguna Miguna, the incoming governor for Nairobi, that it is important to be sensitive to the fact that well, I didn't say you stop thinking. I just said you.
Let's not butt in. Let him just finish.
You may continue thinking, but think in private.
All right.
But Debarl, let me say, because remember in our earlier discussion we had also mentioned in the future, and because we brought in the question of the coroner's bill in the face of what has happened, what one would be asking is this: with the history that we have, with all the murders and assassinations and deaths that we have seen that have remained suspicious, and in the absence of full closure of such deaths, then what is the way forward? I think that would be an issue that one would want to address, and personally I would want to comment on, because it is of absolute necessity, and this is where one would draw a comparison, as Miguna Miguna was trying to do, with what happens to or in other areas, in other countries. For example, you find, and I remember us commenting on, for example, on the OJ trial. Look at what happened when Pistorius was being charged in South Africa. You find that there is pursuit of justice to almost absurdity. And at the end of the day, you will find that no matter what it takes, there will be closure of this matter. And the tragedy here is if we let these scenarios, these cases of deaths, assassinations, mysterious murders continue to pile with no full closure and full disclosure too,
yes,
of really, you know, what happened to this particular person, then it emboldens those that perpetrate it, because you know that you can do it and get away with it. And you know, let me speak on behalf of all the other leaders. It makes us very worried that you could be playing and executing your national duties, representing the people, speaking on behalf of people, acting on behalf of people, but you don't know who is trailing you, who is behind you. And you know, the saddest thing, and this one I speak as a father, as a husband also, and as a human being. You know, the saddest thing is this Debarl, that it only takes one day for news to break out. There will be a 411 that for purposes of reference, that Miguna is not there. I mean, I'm not saying that.
Don't joke about it.
I'm not saying that.
Somebody actually is trailing me right now.
So I'm saying,
don't joke about it.
The point I wanted to make is this, Debarl, as I close, that you see, it just take a 411 that so and so has been assassinated or killed or murdered. There'll be some talk in town. And then after that, there'll be some mourning, and then we all go to the funeral, and you bury the man,
and we forget about it,
and the story is dead.
Yeah,
you know, and this is what is us as leaders.
Thank you.
That remember, let me just finish, because we have a long trail from the times of J.M. Kariuki, from the times of Tom Mboya, from the times of Saitoti, all the way up to today. This happens, and there is no closure, there is no disclosure, there is no story to tell. Nobody would say these are the people that we hold to account.
Right. Let's because I want us to drill deeper, because even if we hack back to 1975, we have J.M. Kariuki. He was taken from a forest. He was actually brought into the mortuary, The way that particular piece of evidence was handled was very mediocre. And Miguna raises a very important point, especially with the cornering off of this particular vehicle. First of all, we've seen pictures of Moses Kuria on the scene. Looking at what we have right now, which is in the Daily Nation today, and I think some of the journalists around there, this should be a guarded crime scene, right? We should be having police officers here, right? Because if we look at the Coroner's Service Act, it says here on section 39, subsection 1, that a police officer or any person who is present at the time of death or who finds a dead body shall, in addition to reporting the death under this act or any other written law, preserve the scene of crime until the coroner or a member of the service presents himself or herself at the scene. Also, in addition to securing and preserving the scene under subsection 1, a police officer shall collect evidence necessary and relevant for purposes of investigation of an offense and prosecution of the matter. If we have even journalists also just coming in, roaming around the evidence, the crime of scene there. We know the piece of evidence that was on O.J. Simpson's case was a very small evidence. It was just a glove.
Including a hair strand.
And a hair strand.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's just look at all this. And then I want to hear from Joshua briefly before we continue with Ken and also.
We normally lose this conversation on the way we do our things as a country. When such an incident happens, the interest and the talkings is so rife. We talk about it in detail, but after that everything goes quiet. Yes. We never follow through. For example, if you talk about institutional capacity, I picked out, if you look at the reason why you always get this proposal that let's get someone from outside the country to come in, it speaks of two things. One, do we have the genuine capacity? And even if we have the genuine capacity, do we follow it up with the genuine desire to get a clear answer, a correct answer? Those are the two things that leads to where we are. So when you talk about, for example, the crime scene, I think Miguna had picked up and you just followed it through in terms of what needs to be done. We are not, I cannot say that personally I'm trained to be a forensic investigator, but the little we know, the little we see makes us say even the basics here should have been done differently. So we have a case whereby we fail to professionalize, we fail to put into action. Last I checked, the country, way back in 2008, 2009, I remember when the late Honorable Otieno Kajwang was the Minister of Immigration. I remember there was a time there was a tussle with by then Head of Civil Service, Ambassador Mdaura, about some procurement about of a forensic lab and all that. I don't know what became of that, because at that time, the main issue was, why do we seek to procure such? It was because we sought to move our investigation a notch higher. We are making painfully slow steps. Like, we've just done CCTVs and we are stuck there. But the question would be, even if you talk about the whole idea of strands of hair, do we have the labs in the first place? Do we have such high-tech facility where we can do that? Now that is where we should focus our conversation, because you are keen on solutions. Let's focus our talk on that. Can we pinpoint and say, for example, the police service, the DCI, are they equipped to that? Secondly, I'm sure that we have trained officers, but what is the number? And how often are they given, for example, such training and refresher? Do we focus on their capacity? Do we focus on their on whether they have the equipment and all that? Then you now answer the second bit. When it comes to such high-profile cases, the biggest reason why, even if we have the capacity, even if we have officers to investigate, another block is always, is there an angle of that powerful people are behind this? And in Kenya, those murders you've mentioned, JM Kariuki, Robert Ouko, those ones had a political inclination. For Msando, we haven't got into that level where we can call and say this is a political angle. But for the previous one, now that we are seeking to benchmark, for the previous one, there was a political angle. And the moment a political angle was, which was by then more or less like official political powers that be, it became difficult, because even with the competent police force, if the powers above them decide that this is not going to take place, it won't take place. So you have to deal with two issues. Deal with the capacity. Let's talk. In fact, I would love we keep this conversation beyond. How many of us still follow about Jacob Juma and the rest and ask what were the steps, what became of the file? The media, for example, should be the best watchdog to follow through the story. Because Kenya, we have a culture of forgetting too fast. We comment, it will trend for 3, 4, 5 days, but it will happen. Now, worst case scenario is that we are having elections. Elections will take away this this story. If next week, where I'm very confident we'll have very peaceful kind of an elections, after next week, that story dies out. But who follows up? Does the media follow through and say, what became of this? Do we have case-by-case kind of follow-up? Let me give an example. For LSK, when Willie Kimani and the other two others were murdered, the only thing that has kept that conversation going is because you have his mother agency or his mother employer, the one that employed Willie Kimani, and LSK have always been following up. When the case comes up, there's always an update about it. What is the latest? Now, when you have such kind of a discussion beyond just right now the talk about this, then we are getting somewhere. And we focus our talk on solutions and say, did we learn? That's why I would still feel, I would love to hear from maybe the honorable members to tell us what became of that system where we were to procure and have a complete refurbished forensic lab, so that we wouldn't be talking of a case where you're seeing an officer, for example, not lasted. So that will be the question.
All right. So how